Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second manga club of the summer reading program. Today we are going to be talking about the real science of quirks in My Hero Academia. So we're going to talk about real animals that have abilities similar to some of the characters' quirks, and we're going to talk about how the human body would have to develop in real life to allow for those quirks to actually happen. So first we're going to talk about one of my very favorite characters, DENKI Kaminari. His quirk allows him to generate electricity and cover his body in it. While he can emit this energy over a distance, he has little to no control over it. Exceeding his wattage limit causes his brain to short circuit, leaving him in a vulnerable state for an hour. And by a vulnerable state, I mean that he looks like this. His brain basically shorts out and he can't really do a whole lot for an hour. He's pretty useless. So the animal that would be most like in real life is the electric eel. So actually all animals, even humans, generate a small amount of bioelectricity, which is electrical energy created by biological systems. But some create a lot more than others, like the electric eel. So the electric eel, as you can see in the diagram, has three separate energy generating organs: the main organ, the hunter's organ, and the sacs organ. So the main and the hunter's organs generate larger amounts of electricity, and they're used to stun prey and for self-defense. And the sacs organ can only generate low voltage amounts of energy, so it's used to navigate and for communication. So the cells in these organs are disc shaped and they're specialized for generating electrical currents. So when the brain gives the command to generate electricity, all the cells activate within 2 milliseconds of each other in a chain reaction. You can think of it like batteries stacked in the handle of a flashlight. So the electricity flows through them in a chain reaction very, very quickly. So since it can happen so fast, that's what lets it generate a large amount of electricity. Water conducts electricity, so then the water around the eel conducts electricity and makes the voltage even larger. So the eel's body has modified muscle cells that focus on generating electrical impulses instead of muscular contractions, which is how most animals produce bioelectricity, is through their muscular contractions. So Denki's body would have to have something similar. He'd have to have modified cells in the same way. Some of his muscles would have to be modified to create stronger electrical impulses than they normally would. And there's some electric fish that protect their brains with a layer of fat, because fat doesn't conduct electricity well, so that way they don't electrocute themselves or hurt themselves when they generate electricity. Denki apparently doesn't have that feature, unfortunately, so he electrocutes himself the more power he uses. So next we are going to talk about a character that we don't actually know a whole lot about. His name is Hisashi Midoriya. He is the father of Izuku, the main character in the show. We don't know a whole lot about him other than he has a fire breath quirk that allows him to breathe fire. There's, of course, no animals in real life that can actually breathe fire because, sadly, dragons are mythological. But I think if you combine a couple different things, it could potentially be possible. So, in order to breathe fire, you would need platinum, oxygen, and hydrogen. So oxygen's the easiest one to get. It's in the air that we breathe, so Hisashi would be breathing it in normally. And it can react with hydrogen to make fire, but they need platinum as a catalyst. So a catalyst is a substance, something that causes or accelerates a chemical reaction without itself being involved in the chemical reaction, being affected by it. And so hydrogen and oxygen with platinum as a catalyst can produce an exothermic reaction, which is a reaction that releases energy in the form of heat. So it could create a fireball. So Hisashi would need some kind of platinum to catalyze the chemical reaction. So if he had like a plate on the roof of his mouth or in the back of his throat, the hydrogen and the oxygen could react in his mouth and allow him to breathe fire. So the hydrogen is really the trickiest part, though. It can be created biologically by certain types of bacteria, but that doesn't really help if it can't be stored in Hisashi's body. So this can be accomplished with an organ similar to a swim bladder, which is an organ that fish have. It's a gas bag basically inside of a fish's body, and it's used to change their buoyancy so that they can float at different depths. So if Hisashi had a similar organ connected to his lungs that was filled with hydrogen producing bacteria, so then he would be able to breathe out hydrogen when needed. Now, we can't really talk about animal-based quirks without talking about Tsuyu Asui, whose quirk is literally just frog. Her quirk gives her a frog's physiology and allows her to do anything that a frog can, which gifts her with abilities such as enhanced swimming abilities, hopping at long distance, extending her tongue up to 20 meters, breathing underwater, sticking to walls, and camouflaging herself. We're going to talk about those last three in a little bit more detail. So first of all, breathing underwater. Frogs can breathe in two different ways. Frogs have lungs just like we do, but they only rely on their lungs to breathe when they're like in action mode, so they need more oxygen than they usually do. So they use their mouth and their nostrils to conflow the airflow into their lungs. When a frog breathes in, the lower portion of the mouth lowers, and then its throat relaxes. Once its throat is relaxed, it opens its nostrils so that the air can flow into the mouth and throat. And then the frog contracts its mouth and forces the air into its lungs. When they don't need extra oxygen, so when they're resting or just hanging out, then they actually breathe through their skin. Most of a frog's respiration actually occurs through their skin. So frog skin is really thin and it has blood vessels and capillaries that are really close to the surface. So the skin can dissolve oxygen from either the air or the water and transmit it into the blood. So they actually can breathe underwater through their skin. Unfortunately, if there's not enough oxygen in the water, they can drown that way. So in order to breathe underwater, Suyu's skin would have to be really similar to a frog's skin. So really thin and with the blood vessels really close to the surface. And her lung function probably works pretty similar to the way a frog's does as well, I would guess. Next, sticking to surfaces. So there was a study done in 2007 that showed that white tree frogs, the just little frog pictured on this slide, they have sticky pads on their toes, which we knew, but the studies show that these pads have this tiny hexagonal pattern that allows the foot pad to create friction. You can see in the really close-up picture, there's those little patterns, and you can see that they're not completely flat. They're a little bit concave, like dipped in the middle, so that provides more surface area to create more friction between the toes and the wall or the surface that the frog is sticking to. Friction is the resistance of motion when one object rubs up against another one. And then you can see there's little channels in between the little hexagon shapes. And that allows for the mucus that the frog secretes through its skin to flow through in between, which also helps them stick. And then also when they move their feet, the mucus can wash away any dirt or dust that might be on their feet that would be preventing them from sticking. So Suyu's fingers and toes probably have similar pads to help her stick and to climb walls. But we saw in the first slide when I introduced her in her hero uniform, she's got gloves on and she's got something on her feet, socks or boots or something. So I would guess that she probably worked with the kids in the support track, the inventors, to help create a uniform that would have really, really thin fabric so that it would allow her still to be able to use her toe pads and the mucus to seep through so that it would help her stick. Next, we're going to talk about the camouflage. Some frogs, including the gray tree frog, which you can see pictured right there, have camouflaging abilities. They have special pigment cells called chromatophores. A lot of amphibians, fish, reptiles, crustaceans, and cephalopods, like squids and octopus, have those. So they can control the size of the chromatophores, and that varies the color and creates color changing patterns. Different kinds of chromatophores have different colors, and they can layer them on top of each other to make a wider variety of colors that they can turn. So Suyu's body probably has a wide variety of different chromatophores because it seems in the manga and the show that she can blend into just about any environment. The chromatophores can be controlled by either hormones or by the nervous system. So when they're connected to the nervous system, their size is changed by muscle contractions. So I think Suyu's are probably controlled by her nervous system because that allows her to change colors faster and to have more control over the colors as well. So those of you that registered for this program will receive one of these templates here to create your own hero that is based on an animal. I'm going to talk about what their quirk is, what animal inspired it. Those might be the same thing if your hero is like Suyu, where her quirk is just frog. Then you can draw a drawing and talk about how that hero's body has adapted to allow for their quirk. So for example, I created one myself. So this is Shadow Wing. His quirk is owl, so obviously his animal inspiration is also an owl. So I looked up some stuff about how owls do things that they do. First of all, how they turn their heads. So owls can turn their heads 270 degrees, which is way more than pretty much any other animal can. So they have extra vertebrae, which are the tiny little bones in your neck and in your spine. So my character has extra vertebrae in his neck so that he can turn it more. Also, human necks are connected to the rest of our body with two different pivot joints, the places where they're attached. Owls only have one, so does shadowing, and that also helps him to turn his neck further than normal. He also has backup arteries in his neck, just like an owl, so that when he turns his head, if it pinches off some of his blood vessels, then there's backup ones to make sure that he still gets enough oxygen to his brain. I thought that that was a super interesting thing that owls can do. So also some of his bones are hollow. A lot of birds have hollow bones, or some of their bones are hollow, because it reduces their body weight and helps them be able to fly better. And he also has wings, obviously, but his wings have serrated feathers on the ends. So owls can fly a lot more quietly than a lot of other birds, which is something that I learned when I was looking this up. And they do that because the feathers on the ends of their wings are serrated. They have like these little spikes on them, and it reduces the wind resistance, the airflow that goes through them. It divides it up into smaller little airflows, and that reduces the sound that it makes when it whooshes over their wings so that they can sneak up on things. He also has really big eyes so that he can see better, and he has little owl ears, mostly just because I thought it was cute. So there's my character. If you create your own, we would love to see what you come up with. You can post it in the comments in this video, or you can tag us on Facebook or on Instagram with the hashtag HPLteen. So coming up next is our virtual cat cafe. This is going to be on June 12th. I'm super excited about this program. We're going to be partnering with Startover Rover for this. So you can tune in and see a live stream of the cats playing. You're going to meet some adoptable cats. And if you register for the program, you also get a kit so that you can make a really fun Japan-inspired cat toy that you can keep for your cats or donate to Startover Rover or Heartland Pet Connection. And you can also learn how to make a Japanese coffee treat for humans. So July 12th, you can sign up on hastingslibrary.us. And that is all I have today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed learning some interesting things about animals, and hope you register for our next program. Thank you very much.